It's a hot start.
It's a hot start because I just said, like, I wish you were here today.
Oh, and
Right.
you're at your farm with like
Right.
a friendly background. I can tell you're about to go play in the woods and like go pet your cows.
Go play hide and seek by myself. Maybe
yeah, that's what he's doing. Hide and seek.
Hide and seek with his.
Oh my
cows.
God! I found you again.
Gonna play freeze tag. It's gonna be awesome.
That could go in a weird, creepy way really quick. I found you.
Yeah, good.
So, but yeah, and so what I was saying is like I feel like I am in a phase of my life where I am eating glass and I'm working. Like Craig's like you're at the ranch, or what I was saying, and I feel like I'm Monday through Friday just grinding in a different mode, and Craig was like, I don't feel sorry for you.
Well, I just said like, hey, listen, you said it yourself. You're like, I'd like to just go back to where my life was 2 years ago, and I asked you a very simple question: do you want to go back to your income 2 years ago? And immediately, like, hell no. So that means you need to STFU. You're either growing and you're hustling and making more, or you're cruising.
But Trey, are you super busy right now? Just like it as a whole, you are.
I'm drowning.
Okay,
of course he is. Look at what he's just done.
Yeah, that's true. All right, look, I wasn't a woe is me. I just felt like it's a good goal to get back to kind of a little bit more balance. I feel like I'm always like either on anyway.
Well, it's the striver's curse, though, Pete. Just because I think it's important.
What was that from? The striver's curse. That was that.
I don't know.
No, I think that was on the Oprah thing we talk about. No, the Arthur Brooks.
Strength to strength.
Strength to strength.
Well, whatever it is. I mean, like, look, there's boredom, and like I got to do more, and then you take it on. And the problem with taking on tasks is it's not linear; it's chunks. Trey, how many offices have you bought or opened in the last 2 years?
There's 4 this year.
It's crazy. That's insane. That's freaking insane. And then Peter, how many practices have you bought or opened in the last 2 years?
3.
That's insane. Equally insane. 1 is insane. 1 is an insane amount of workload because it's just a lot to add on. So, I mean, no wonder why you're feeling that way.
Pete, one of the things that I was thinking about this the other day, and you get into the situation of you have to build the foundation and the infrastructure as you're driving forward. And one of the things that I keep telling myself, because I'm finding myself kind of in that same mentality of you think back a year or 2 ago and think, man, that was awesome in terms of where I was, what I was doing, my role and everything. And then you see things drive forward and you're building a stage where you're building the on-ramp.
Right.
And once you get on it, that comes back. You've built cash flows, you have more revenue streams, you have all these things in place, but the front end is a ton of work. And getting it to that point where I'm starting to see my calendar fill up, which drives me crazy. That's the part where you think, shit, I gotta be, and you have to really get that. You have to be more efficient with your time.
What do y'all think would happen?
So, and I knew it would happen. I've already been through it. And I'm sure Pete, you have too. It scales up with each.
I get
each
frustrated
revolution
because I feel like I'm always talking about systems and processes, right? And I find myself even in today's day and age doing things. I'm like, why am I doing this, right? And
because
so,
your systems and processes were built for the organization you had, not and even the best prognostication you can do, your systems and processes break because you're expanding, and that's what they're supposed to do.
All right, listen to this. Going back to the striver's curse, I looked it up while I read, because if I remember reading that or listening from that podcast that you've sent everybody, Craig, that strength to strength in the Arthur Brooks thing, and it helped out a ton of people. I remember listening to that. So he says this: the striver's curse is that people are trying to bank their successes and be happy as a result of that, tend to be unhappy or not happier. So they're banking, and I think it's like the next, and so that has always been like my a curse.
Yeah. That's why we said it. But okay. I mean, I think it's a natural cycle for you, for most people. And what drives us in the beginning is being productive. And we all can remember the days when the phone barely rang and finally rang, and it was our girlfriend or our mother, and like, shit, it's not a patient. And a lot of us need to get really, really far away from being broke. And everybody's on their path. It's all good. I admire what you guys are doing.
Joe, so, you gotta think too. Think of the alternative. And I struggle with this. If you just stopped and hung out,
yep.
what's that look like? Because that's my personal nightmare of not feeling like I'm working towards something. And although I don't bank on the end result, but I've learned, it took me a while to figure that out, but I love the journey. I love the stress and the building and everything else. And I never get there, because as soon as I do, I start over.
That's a good statement, Trey, because you're right. Because the converse, look, being busy as shit and like you want something done, give it to a busy person, right? The converse is like, well, what do you want? Like, you want to sit there on a beach, and like, you're right. You talk about jail, personal jail. That's, not having anything to do or any purpose or any fulfillment. Like that's
a delicate balance, I think you guys are pointing to. And I don't want to intimate, by being a counterpoint to your conversation that I'm just chilling. But I do think there's a delicate balance to it. I know I don't want to retire. I don't want to be not busy. I'll be flying to Tennessee later this week. I'm speaking for a Seattle Study Club.
Oh, really?
Give a shout out to Sully Sullivan. Is that his real name? Sully Sullivan. This just seems too good to be a real name, but I'm going to go with it. So I'm speaking for him at his Seattle Study Club in Nashville on Friday. So that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
Nashville, huh?
Spreading the Bulletproof Gospel.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know who else was spreading the Bulletproof Gospel?
Who? Oh yeah, it's true. Duh, I walked right into that one.
Well, that's, as being the greatest panel moderator in history, I can actually segue us into things really effortlessly. So here we are, Craig. So the Bulletproof Gospel is actually spread by a guy who's super popular on Twitter. He's probably the most famous Twitter accountant there is. He's been on our pod. His name is Mr. Baldridge. He's been on our pod a couple of times, and really we got some great feedback from him. And I think, Craig, we leaned into him for some concepts that were good enough where he kind of resonated on his own channels about the concept of entrepreneurial profit.
Hallelujah.
Craig, I know you push on gospel. You push on this a lot in our mastermind, and you make people quantify this in their own practice, because we have a tendency to conflate, as dentists, especially solo operators, we have a tendency to conflate the cost of doing dentistry or the profits of doing dentistry versus the profits of owning the business. And so it's a unique distinction. It's a good exercise to kind of elevate your business acumen. And I will shut up there.
Well, I think just to kind of double click on what you just said, you don't necessarily have a business, and that's okay. It's totally cool, because being a dentist is an amazing job, even if you work for yourself. LeBron James.
Correct. Let's unpack. Before we get to the theory of all that high level stuff, we haven't told people how to get there for them to figure it out themselves.
Sure.
Do you want to go through the calculus, or you want me to?
I mean, I'll take a stab at it. And if I get too wordy, you just jump in like you usually do. I meant that. I know it's true. I'm projecting now. Yeah. Let me project. Yeah.
Let's get it right.
Yeah, get it right. I'm the interrupter.
My reviewer are going to get all over you again.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. I can't with my L of 1. I might just quit if I get one more. Anyway, entrepreneurial profit is basically, so you have your top line of your business. You do $1 million a year, and you take $100,000 salary as the dentist, because whatever, and because that's what your accountant told you to do, and you look down at the bottom line and you have a $400,000 net profit. Including, not including your $100,000 salary. So you get, wow, $500,000 is what my business makes. I have a 50% net profit. And then you go to a Bulletproof Summit, or you listen to a podcast, and you hear this thing called entrepreneurial profit, which means that you have to pay yourself as a dentist. So you're working in your practice for free. If you were to replace yourself, a guy that does, $1 million a year or whatever, that requires typically at the low end, 28 to 35% of that production or collection to be paid to you. So what entrepreneurial profit means is $1 million top line. You do, let's say $500,000 or $800,000 worth of that dentistry. You have to put on the P&L, your profit and loss statement, 35%. Let's use that number as an example of the 800 grand. So that everything that drops down after that is the true profit for owning that business. For many people that go through this calculus, they realize that if they pay themselves 30, 32, 35%, the bottom line is actually negative. And what that cold, hard reality means is that your business, owning your business, costs you money.
Versus being associating, right? Versus being associated. Okay.
Yeah.
So an easier way to do
that's a hard pill to swallow, by the way.
You made that very, you made that hard.
Okay, got it. Well, we'll edit that out. We'll just go with you.
My opinion.
So I'll give some, Peter, why don't you take a stab at it?
We'll take a stab.
Take your P&L, right, for the month. Look at the bottom. It's going to, whatever it says, right? Then go back and abate your
abate. That's a hard one.
Abate what the cost would have taken. So if it's 30%, let's say you did $100,000, right? It would cost $30,000 if you were to bring someone in to do the dentistry. So you take that $30,000 and you abate it from the profits of the month. And that shows you what either you're negative. If it's less than 30,000, you had trouble, right? You're like you're saying, to your point, you'd have been better served. If it's greater than that, the delta of that greater is actually where your entrepreneurial profit is. Or another word for that is
net profit or EBITDA.
EBITDA, right? Well, I guess that's not really EBITDA because we'd be adding things back in, but it's part of it. It's part of the calculation.
It's just what you have to show monetarily for the struggle and the hassle and effort to own your business. It shows that. So it's really operating.
It's the operating income of it, the net operating income
of your business. So if that number feels good and you say it's commensurate for the effort I put into running my business, that's great. If it feels bad or you're losing money, it's just a cold reality that you either need to get better training, scale your business, or maybe it's time to, consider another option. But
a good way to describe this to people too is I say, look, what if someone came along to you and said, I want to buy your practice, you stay on, right? Like, I'm not a dentist, therefore this is what kind of profits could I expect from buying your business as an entrepreneur, not a dentist, as an entrepreneur.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. And that is what you could expect to see as a check after you are paid for your cost of labor or your cost of dentistry. Right. That's what that person could expect as a dividend from the investment in your practice.
Right. You want to own the car wash, but you don't actually want to wash cars.
That's why we hear about private equity and talking about 3 turns, 5 turns, 5x EBITDA, 6 turns, right? It's what can they expect in return for the investment they made, right? And so
go to that tweet if you don't mind, because he actually even wrote it down a little bit more eloquently than both you and I did, which is great. Well, than I did for sure.
Pete, I think you gotta, what you just said starts to muddy the water a little bit, because when you start talking about turns and you start talking about bites of the apple from a capitalization event, you're getting away from the fact that what this is really talking about is cash flow and operating profit of money coming out, not as opposed to arbitrage coming in from roll-up type plays.
Can you unpack that's a very good concept that you guys are sparring over right now. Just unpack that for the ordinary listener.
So what Pete kind of talked about just then is the classic sell to private equity. You're coming in with a portion of stock valued at X, and then they go, and now what under their umbrella, your enterprise is worth more because they're worth more.
Uh-huh. Well,
and they keep flipping it and selling it as things get bigger. So you have a valuation of a company that is bigger and can be sold to a bigger fish for a bigger number, even though it's the same.
You're talking about a roll-up scenario. I actually wasn't talking about rolling up practices and there being the arbitrage in that roll-up. I was just saying when you hear of an offer, right? Oh, I'm getting 5 turns on my EBITDA, right? I'm not even talking about the arbitrage.
So you're explaining what that number is, what they're basing the number off of.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Got
it.
I think for the sake of the listener, that's, this, just to stay on one smaller segment of this topic, because I think when we start talking about private equity and sale and all that stuff, it adds another layer of complexity to it. And I think this, unfortunately, this concept can't be glossed over. People don't readily understand this. They don't understand that in order to find out what their business generates beyond their dentistry is very cryptic for most dentists. I guarantee most dentists listening to this don't know this. unfortunately.
So you want to read this? This is actually pretty good, actually. If you want to read this, because you say this a lot, like, look, you can go anywhere and you can have, what risk do you have? You can go and move states and you still have an in-demand job. Basically, what he's saying is this, Craig. I don't know if you can see it on your screen.
I can see it, but I don't have my glasses on. I don't want you to make fun
Dentists
of me.
are a great example to think about this concept. They are in high demand and can basically get a job or a high-paying work anytime they want. This means that in order to own a practice, they better be getting tremendous value from their business. If you do not want to hone people, sharpen people, your branding and systems of your business to build something bigger than yourself, you might be better off having a job.
100%. Hallelujah. That was the most important thing. So we are sold the narrative in dentistry by the supply houses, the banks, and all these other things is convincing everyone they should be like the three of us. And let's face it, we're built differently. I don't know if it's better or worse. I'm not saying that. It's just the way this podcast started off. You guys are addicted to the strive and the growth. I am too. I mean, just to at this moment, I'm in a low gear for a second. But most dentists, by virtue of our training and selection of the career, are not built like that. They tend to be introverted. They tend to like direct patient care. It's very different. It's a total different skill set. Your successes and failure for a dentist are on the micron. You are rewarded for being myopic. The successes and failures in the business are on the macro, and you're rewarded for being a bigger thinker. So by virtue of being an exceptional dentist, it kind of naturally selects out a lot of entrepreneurs. So I think the worst thing we can do on this podcast is convince people who are not built this way to do this. And the way to look at the math is to do the entrepreneurial profit exercise and find out if you are as good as you think.
Yeah. And it is just that. I think when you're a solo practitioner, it's very academic. It's just, it doesn't mean anything, right? Because your take home and your dentistry, you're conflated and you take them home and you don't really care. But I think it is a good exercise to evaluate on the merits of operationally plus dentistry and efficiency of your practice. Right.
It's a good exercise to compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
It's sobering. I remember having, at one point, I remember doing like $1.8 million of personal collection as a dentist, having like a $5 million or $6 million top line. And my net was like 200 grand at that particular inflection point. What was I paid? If I took home 200 grand on 1.8 million, what was my percentage of collections I was making that year? Whatever it is, it was shitty, right? We can all agree it was shit.
You wouldn't take that job.
Right. So I had the uncomfortable situation of having to pivot and grow. And everybody asks the same question to us: how do I add an associate, give them the work, and still maintain my income? And the answer to all of us is unequivocally, you don't. Right? I mean, is there any way to?
Well, not with one. No. Yes.
No, but you're first.
I mean, there is a way.
You're second.
What you're doing, if you're thinking like that, is you're removing the ceiling. You're removing the ceiling of something that basically, as a dentist, as a technician, you are only capable of X, and it's limited by one, your ability, but two, by time. At some point, your ability is as good as it gets, and you cannot do any more in any given unit of time. Once you do this,
ceiling is already so high.
You remove the ceiling, but you do step back. It is
right, but Trey,
that ceiling, you will make less.
Trey, that ceiling is so high. So if you're like a pool guy, your ceiling might be, I don't know, I'm sorry to offend the pool people out there, but maybe you could make like 80 grand a year if you're a really busy pool guy. And then you realize I should hire other pool guys, and that's the way to get there. Dentists can actually earn as a solo provider $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $800,000. So think about the guy who's just working 4 days a week, 3 days a week, loves what he does, and he's taking home $600,000-$700,000 grand. He's going to take a hit when he offloads that work to the next guy.
So I think you touched on that. You can't sit on a podcast like this and pitch one thing over another, because the individualism is what matters. There's the guy that's going to do it and figure out his entrepreneurial profit and think, shit, I'm only doing 25%, 20%, but he loves his business and he loves doing what he does. And then there's the guy that's going to come in and just crush it and say, but you know what? I don't really like the dentistry. I want to go into the more entrepreneurial type adventure.
And Trey, back to the 25% though, right? That doesn't factor in the benefits. And I always talk about this to people, the owner benefits, right? Your health insurance is probably, you're not factoring in that, in your car and the CE vacation you win, all the things, right? There's a ton of owner benefits that are not accounted for, or they are accounted for as expenses, which then decreases that net, which makes it feel a little bit more humbling. So you're right. It is not just it's a quick cursory math that says, cool, I'm in the right direction. I'm trending over time in the right direction, or I've got some work to do because my net is only 20 and I'm giving 20%. I'm giving free labor. That would mean your overhead is way too high.
I want to ask you guys a question. It's just kind of just another layer of this. So we hear this from dentists all the time. I want to work on my business versus in it. Mm-hmm. So just so people that say that, because people will say, okay, cool. They'll say like 2 or 3 adages. I want to work smarter, not harder. Mm-hmm. And I want to work on it versus in it. And everybody's like, cool, good for you. Awesome. Let's unpack that shit. What does working on the business mean? What are the 5 skill sets that you need to do so that you can either be listening to this and say, that's me, or holy shit, that is not me. So what are the 5 things that you have to do to work on your business? I don't want just in any order, guys.
So can I just add a little more context to this?
Yeah, of course.
Right? I think this is so good because you do hear it, right? It's from the E-Myth. It's they were kind of the E-Myth position, and those books were saying, well, hey, spend some time working on your business, but it's never been delineated what that actually looks like, right? Does that mean I come in on Friday and do payroll? Is that working on the business?
That's what I think most people think it is. I want to be on Fridays. I'm going to work on the business. My door's going to be shut.
Yeah. So I think I'm not going to skirt around the question, but here's some things that would be considered in working on my business.
Like, give me the domains as well, okay. Like the high level domains.
It would be marketing.
Right.
It would be systemization.
Right.
It would be looking for bottlenecks of efficiency.
Okay. That could be in process systemization.
Okay, sure. It could be conversations about expansion, meaning going to look at land, going to look at new locations, having conversations with the growth. Yeah, anything of growth. Thank you, Trey. Craig, you kind of
My favorite one.
What?
Vision, leadership.
Well, that for sure. Like a whole day on that. Yes.
So of those domains that we just said, Trey, go ahead.
I want to hear Trey.
I think, and I was going to step on something where Craig, you're going. There is a foundational aspect of it that as you start to list these things out, you need to start understanding. And you hear it a lot now talking about speaking the language of money, but you need a vision. You need all the things that Craig's going to illuminate at this point in time, but you also need a solid foundation in your financials.
There you go.
Your balance sheet, your P&Ls. You need to understand these things. So now you can make decisions that now allow data to show you good decision, bad decision.
Okay. Got it. Data analysis, systemization. Okay.
So you have to have that type of deal.
One more question now for you guys. And I'm not trying to take the world's greatest. I wouldn't even be second greatest moderator. I would never think of myself in that high of regard to insult the great Peter Boulden.
Easy.
So of all those categories, marketing, systemization, processes, data, leadership, visioneering, what do you think is the most rare for our dental colleagues?
Vision.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Me too. Okay, so by virtue of us being scientists and medical professionals, we're really good at recipes, the 5 seconds of acid etch and the 7 seconds of air thinning, and then the dual cure, and make sure you don't put the light on it. We love that.
Can you put a pin in that before as you start crushing the systems people? Can you
No, I'm not. You need it all. You need it all.
Okay.
I'm not going to crush anybody because, like, listen, I'll be the first to admit, all ideas, no ground.
All I was gonna say, Craig, is that this is on your business. These are the things. It's the bulletproof
exactly
pathway, right? It's the visioneering. It's the how are you going to build and expand, like Trey's saying, your growth. How are you going to market? What is your process for enrolling better? Like this is the bulletproof pathway is the working on your business. It is not payroll and cleaning the office or tidying up or what I don't know.
Yeah. Organizing your desk and organizing cotton rolls and creating some.
So if ever we're confused again, us chickens. Forever we're confused again about what working on. And Trey, look, there's
but these collapse into domains, though.
I know.
But all I was saying is that. But I'm just saying that this is why dentists.
You guys should have told me it wasn't very clear on the screen. Now it's clear. Okay,
whatever.
Anyway, so sorry, Craig, I interrupted.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So, what I was saying though is that, so we're being told that you should work on versus in, and work harder. Work smarter, not harder, and blah, 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 all these adages. And we run off and we enroll in the Bulletproof Mastermind and we do all these things, or we hire another coach or whatever we're doing. And then it's like, oh shit, I actually don't really know what I want. I don't have this thing in me. And I'm not pointing out that it can't be cultivated, but it's very difficult to help people understand what they want. I have a very distinct feeling for you guys, Peter and Trey, that had you been in pizza businesses, you would not be flipping pizzas right now. You would have figured out a systematized way to reproduce it. And you'd probably be hot on the heels of Papa John or some local guy with 3 or 4, 7 locations. That's what you did in dentistry. You guys are built. I'm sorry.
So I blew it then. Could have been a pop-up.
Well, there's better profit margins in pizza. That's for shit, sure. You still can be Papa Bolden. Papa Bolden pizza. What if? I'm going to buy that URL and sell it to you, by the way. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that people don't know what they're even doing. They're just going off and doing this thing. And I hear that. So what are you going to do on Friday when you're working in? And no one expects that question.
But no one, it's such a good question, because we throw it around flippantly. And then when someone says that back to us, we're like, oh, cool. Yeah. Do that. Go work on your business. And no one ever dissects.
Yeah.
Except the Craigs of the world say, well, specifically, what are you going to do? Work on my business. I'm going to go in there and pay payroll and check, check if the
reconcile. I'm going to reconcile.
I'm going to reconcile things.
Supply room,
That's
and you're right. Like, it's a big delineation of like, this is how it should be called: the work on your business pathway, not Bulletproof Pathway.
All right. But it's also like, what do you like to do? Well, I just want to be left alone. Okay. I understand you want to be left alone, but you just hired 4 docs and they need your help. Can I hire a CEO to talk to them? Okay. Yeah. You can hire a CEO that used to run like 4 Chick-fil-A's, but when the doctors say, how should I sequence the quadrant dentistry? I had this thread on Facebook recently. I don't know if I told you this. Please stop me if I've spoken about this on the podcast, but we did this video of my practice and it went viral, and viral-ish, a couple thousand views, and it found its way over to a Facebook page, a really nice Facebook page. But immediately all the dentists are like, holy shit, what is that office? 13,000 square feet. What is his problem? What imagine what his facility costs are. Like, this guy's crazy. They don't realize that facility costs are a percentage. That's the big thing that dentists don't realize. Everything is a percentage. So it doesn't matter if your facility cost is $3,000. If it's 48% of your profit and loss, you're failing. Right. Or if your facility cost is $400,000, but it's only 4%, you're winning. Right. So people were torching this. And then one guy who's a consultant, I clicked on his
people
Facebook.
were torching this, and you just happened to bounce into this Facebook room?
No, someone tagged me. They tagged me.
Oh, here, look at this. I'm on Facebook. Oh, they're talking about me.
No, I got tagged. And I'm happy about that. It's totally cool. But someone's like, so I got a bunch of direct messages. Can I pick your brain? To which I said, yes, but how familiar are you with what I've done with my partners? I don't know. Have you seen the book? No. Have you seen the podcast? No. I'm like, well, start there.
Yeah.
Because it's all there. Like, I literally wrote a book about all of it.
Before we start axe picking my brain, let's
but like, oh my God, thank you. So number one, it pointed to the fact that most of the people don't still know about Bulletproof, which is promising for us here on the microphones. But moreover than that, it was this unbelievable awakening that people were upset that I was a dentist. So I had more than one person in particular who's a dental business coach is, why did you waste your time going to dental school?
Wow.
Most, and quote, and I'm going to try to remember, most dentists go into dentistry because they want to help people and see patients. So I said, how do you know what most dentists want? And also, how do you not know? How would you know that I was a dentist providing direct patient care for 24 years? And by the way, had I not been a dentist, I would not be able to do what I did. So it points over full circle to the dentist saying, I want to work on the business, not in it. I don't really like people. I just want to go to my office on Friday and do paperwork. Well, what about the people you have that are there that are looking for a leader? I want to hire a CEO. How many of us have heard that? I'm going to hire a CEO.
Yep.
Okay, well, who's going to tell the CEO about how to run a dental business? Well, they're going to do CEO stuff. They're going to figure out KPIs. KPIs will save my ass.
Because this is a more common deal of CEO down to an operations person.
But
when
all
really
of them
you
need a
is
leader.
manager.
Right, but a manager needs, an implementer manager needs someone saying the strategic direction. And if that person is not a dentist with no dental experience, it's going to be very difficult. Could you guys do what you do on a daily basis without being a dentist? Just honestly, not legally, just could you, what you're doing on a daily basis?
No.
Not as well.
Yeah.
Well, what parts would be deficient?
I wouldn't know. Like, it's like, I would have no empathy for, it's hard. It would be hard to instruct given that I didn't have the come up of going through all the things, right?
Yep.
I didn't start as the dishwasher and work as my way to the owner. I did, so I knew all the roles, all the job. I answered phones and back in the day, I put TVs up in the ceiling, like the grind up. I just feel like it's contextually important. Now, Craig, there are many successful DSO CEOs that have never been in dentistry, right? So I don't want to, for me, I think it was important. But that's my confirmational bias potentially. Trey,
here's a question. And I had this conversation this morning on a phone call where I did say at some point, I am very visionary in what I do. However, I got here, although I was always that way, I got here by learning through an operational role. Mm-hmm. I had operational chops, so to speak, that got me here, that allowed me to then live in that visionary role altogether and be much better because I came from that operational background, because I came from the dentist chair.
Yep.
So I have learned so much along the way. To take this even further, to allude to what you mentioned, Pete, what do you think, can a dentist be on average? Let's say, can a dentist be a good CEO of a very large organization? Because from what I understand, talking to a lot of people, the general consensus is no, they don't want a dentist in that CEO role. It's some of the much larger ones, much bigger DSOs.
Interesting.
So
you're saying that it's a benefit to a point, and then maybe it's a detriment.
Well, and in some ways, how are you limited and I don't mean to, don't take this as the negative way, but the small-minded aspect, but just the fact of how is your vision limited coming from where we come, whereas coming from nothing, you come in and you say, let's go buy 30 right now. Not, whoa, we bought 2 the year before and now 3 this year and then 4 this year.
Yeah, your optics have been trained by your come up versus versus someone who's new in the industry. Is like, let's just go raise a bunch of money and get practices. Like, what? How's this so hard?
Look at your friend.
The time window,
look at your friend.
Up the scale.
Craig, I got people doing that all the time.
No, I know, but there's one friend who will remain nameless, the guy that I went to dinner with you in Atlanta a couple of years ago with Josh. And this guy's just a serial entrepreneur. And he's like, hey, I want to own dental practices. How many does he have now?
Shit, like 60.
But he started like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I was like, that's cute. You're going to get in the dentistry?
Yeah, it's cute. Yeah, you'll have. Yeah.
You're not going to do as well as me. Now he's got like 60.
Right. But I also want to point one thing and add another layer to this too right now. Like, look at our personalities and our differences and how each of us being dental business owners have very different lives. So like, I don't know, Peter, I'm going to guess that you don't spend a lot of one-on-one time coaching and developing your individual docs in your practice. And that's okay.
Correct.
Because
I don't need, because there's like they themselves are stuck. Like they're okay.
Well, I know.
I'll answer the question. No, Craig, I don't do a lot of talent development.
Right. And I actually think they don't need to. I agree with you. And I also agree with the idea that if you did, they'd get better too. And it's okay. I'm not throwing it out there. Like there's things that you can do as the level of ground game you have through Bulletproof and helping those people. I know you can help them too. It's fine. I'm not throwing any. It is what it is. Trey, do you spend a lot of time like coaching, developing dentists? Do you like doing it? Do you do it? Do you not like doing it?
I like doing it. And that was my intent on the come up. As I've gotten larger, I do much less of it.
And is it because you want to do less of it, or it's just whatever?
No, it's not. It's because the priority and the realization of what my time constraints allow says that is not a scalable place for me.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Got it. So that's I just wanted to point out, like, and if your business you want to grow, if you whiteboard it out, if you like doing that, you should build a business that allows you to do more of that. If you hate doing that, like it points to me to the situation where I had a masterminder tell me he wants exactly what I have. And when he came down, he saw 50 people running on a building. He's like, holy shit, get me out of here. So I just think success is building what you want and then liking what you built. And I think just that long tirade was just kind of an example of
this is one of my favorite, I really like that you brought that up just organically, because I think it's it's so important to delineate when you say you're going to work on it, don't just work on all of it. Just think, I'm going to go work on it. Like, dig in, find something, find two things, find one thing that you're going to move the lever on, fix that. Right. But sometimes we just don't even know what it is.
I just like the idea that people let you go when you say certain adages.
I know. I let people go.
Lip service.
Yeah.
Okay. Go. Okay. Good.
Yeah, what's the plan for this year? Work smarter, not harder. Good. Go get them. You go get them.
Speaking of, so we talked about the DSO. Do you guys know that there seems to be a large rise of companies that consult starting their own DSO? Have you guys seen all this?
Yeah.
Define that a little bit better.
Craig, am I allowed to say? I mean, I guess I could, right? Like, I know that. Anyway, I just see it.
I don't know if you're allowed. I don't even know what you're talking about. So I don't think you're allowed to say it.
Well, anyway, I'm just seeing a lot of companies that were in the business of advising dentists and stuff now go into a hey, join us scenario.
Oh yeah,
there's sure. 3 examples I have in my brain. I'm just going.
I know that guy. Yeah, I talk about him all the time.
You do?
He had like hey, let me help you become a DSO, and now join my DSO. Right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you guys had seen that as well.
Yeah. Here's a consulting.
I think those are few and far between, because the reality of that is to have the consulting network that's large enough to go, you will exhaust your consulting network, and then you got to go be someone that's acquiring. And if you have a large consulting network, great, you're gonna kill it. But if your consulting network is relatively small, then you're barely starting with a head start at that point in time. But I've seen that for sure.
And then, by the way, another sleepwalking euphemism, like the adages we just talked about, is, I just want to take some chips off the table. Everybody leaves it alone at that point. What are you doing? Yeah, I'm going to associate with a DSO. I want to take some chips off the table. What does that mean? Where are the chips going? Because you can't leave them off the table. You have to go put them somewhere. Do you have a return that's better? I don't know.
I mean, look.
That's an abdication of responsibility.
Yeah, someone says
anything else.
If someone says to me, "Chips off the table," that's a higher level.
They're saying I'm done.
Yeah, that's a higher level.
I'm burnt out. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It sounds better. I'm gonna say that too when the
time
comes.
You know what? I gotta take some chips off the table. Yeah. I'm going to the beach.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. Well, guys, I think with that we wrap.
Yeah, we'll take these chips off the table and close this bad boy out.
Let's take our chips off the table and go home. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.